The video you're about to see covers anything and everything sales objections. So this video is actually for a recent charity webinar we did to raise money for the Malou Foundation. And on that, we had 200 people on giving us every objection imaginable. And me and one of my business partners, Brian, handled every single objection live on the call. So no matter what objection you're experiencing, I guarantee you're gonna figure out how to solve it in this video. Let's dive in. So we're gonna cover, first of all, how to remove objections before the close, okay? So a lot of objection handling is not actually handling, it's prevention, okay? A lot of you guys know that. We talk about that all the time in the training, but it is really, really key. You know, I've done a tremendous amount of sales training, and so has Brian, you know, with clients and our team and you guys and so much. And one of the things I've always found is a lot of people want to know exactly what to say when they get X, Y, and Z, insert whatever objection that you get. Yeah. However, most of the time there's a root problem and the objection is a symptom. So the same way you don't want to take a medicine to relieve the symptomatic pain, you also don't, the same way you don't want to do that, you also don't want to, you know, try to use some crazy rebuttal to relieve a symptomatic problem when there's a deeper root cause. So we're going to first talk about some of the root causes. We're not going to go into the whole of the 7 beliefs and asking the right questions and the discovery. Obviously, that could be a whole other training. But I want to cover a few things at the end of the call before you transition to the close that are really, really going to help. Okay. Then we're going to go into the big 3 objections and just kind of my mindset, my framework around objections. And then we're going to go into some cool closes. Okay, so certain things you can do to just get people across the line. All right, so here's where I want to start. And for you guys hopping back on, we're just getting started. You haven't missed anything just yet. We got 119 people on. Just make sure. I mean, if you got, let's say, a friend who doesn't know where this is, or anybody in the group who's confused, help them out. Send them the link. I do want to get everybody back on here and get our numbers back up. I feel really bad, but we had the craziest Zoom malfunction thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And unfortunately, the chat's not working. So I tried to fix it. I think we would have to restart the webinar again for it to work. We're just not going to do that because I want to get this started. So anyways, guys, welcome back. We're getting started. We're talking about objections. And again, we're going to go through prevention, the big 3, and then some closes. And I want this to be pretty interactive. So there's going to be some times where I'm saying, hey, I want you to use the Q&A box. And we did put the link back on Facebook. And keep the Q&A box, guys, unless it's like an emergency or something that's like malfunctioning. Let's keep it for like pointed questions, okay, which you can ask at any time. But there's going to be some times I'm really asking you to give me some objections and also questions around certain things that we cover. And since we don't have the chat, I want you guys to use the Q&A box for that. But other than that, keep it pretty clean so we can sort through it pretty easily. Okay, so where we want to start is removing objections before the close. All right, so again, we have, I believe, 6 parts, if I'm counting correctly, of the sales call, 5 or 6 parts, right? There's the introduction that has rapport and frame the call. We're not going to cover that. Then there's the information gathering, right? That's where we ask skill questions to cover the 7 beliefs. Remember, there's 7 beliefs that your prospect has to have the body. Okay, and what we're going to do is use questions to get them talking and stating those beliefs and reinforcing those beliefs themselves to build consistency. Robert Cialdini says the #1 highest driver of human behavior is the consistency bias. So what we're doing is we're building those 7 beliefs so that by the time we get to the close and transition to the close, instead of having to hard close the prospect and handle a bunch of objections, the prospect closes themselves, right? That's the information gathering phase where we go through either the goals first syntax or the problems first syntax. Again, we're not going to cover that in this training, but I just want to, you know, put this in context. So there's that. After that is the transition. The transition is the, you know, as it says, the transition between the information gathering phase where you're asking all the questions into the pitch. What's really key is a lot of people are asking questions and all of a sudden it's like an anvil drop, they're pitching and it creates a ton of sales resistance. What we want to do here is essentially get them to ask us to pitch them and transition to talking about what we do in a really cool low sales resistance way. That's very, very key. Next is the pitch. Okay, the pitch is where you explain what you do. Now, if you've been to my training, I will teach that the pitch is the simultaneous explanation of why everything they tried in the past has failed and why this is going to be different. What's also key is that the pitch is a dialogue. Okay, it's not you anvil drop 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of information, and then they're like eyes are glazing over, they're checked out, they want to get off the phone. It's a dialogue. Okay, pitch codex training, it's all, everything's in the portal, covers all of that stuff. Where we're going to start today is the committing phase. Okay, the committing phase is really where you get the tie downs and you ask the questions and you really get them bought in that this is the right thing, now is the right time. Not necessarily the product, but the method, right? Because your pitch is really selling them on the method. Okay, we're not really selling them on the product yet. We're selling them on the method, the milestones, what we're going to get done, the method to getting from where they are now to where they want to go. If I was Russell Brunson selling ClickFunnels, my pitch would not be necessarily on ClickFunnels. It would have to cover it a little bit, but it'd be more about how we're going to use funnels to scale, explode their business. It would be about how funnels are the way to create an income online. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, the pitches with the method. Now the committing phase is getting them bought in on the method. It's making sure they're tied down that the method, this is the right thing, now's the right time of the method. Okay. So again, to use the Russell Brunson example, because you guys all know who he is. In the committing phase, if I was selling ClickFunnels on the phone, I would really want to get them bought in that funnels is the most effective, fastest, best way to get customers online, not necessarily yet on the product. I'm all about do you think this method, this system is the way? That's where we're getting them bought into. And that's the committing phase. The committing phase ends with the price drop. Okay, this is all in the training, guys. So, take notes, but still, it's all in the training. The committing phase ends with the price drop. After the price drop, we move on to the final phase, which is objections. Obviously, that's what we're going to cover today. Okay, but we're going to start with the committing phase because there's 3 main objections. All right, if I had the chat, I would tell you to put them in the chat, but we don't have the chat. It's killing me. Okay, it's killing me. But there's 3 main objections. There's financial, there's support, which is either spouse, partner, financial, you guys know what that is. Support is any other authority or stakeholder, anybody else outside of the call who is going to influence the decision or who they cannot make the decision because of this person, or they're deferring authority to that person. That's support. That could be your board, that could be your team, that could be your spouse, that could be your business partner, whatever. The final one, again, if I had the chat, I'd be quizzing you guys, but the final one is uncertainty objections. Okay, what is an uncertainty objection? It's anything that's keeping them from being less than 100% certain that this is the right thing, now is the right time. Uncertainty objections are the worst. Nobody likes these, they suck. Spouse, partner, and finance, pretty easy to deal with. We can mess with that stuff. Uncertainty, it's man, we really should have addressed the root cause earlier. So the reason I want to go with the committing phase first is because ideally the committing phase allows us to handle uncertainty-based objections before price is on the table. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I have no feedback on this presentation, no chat. Okay, but the reason we want to do that in the committing phase is because we're able to really see, are they bought in to this is the right thing, now's the right time? Is there any uncertainty objections before we get price on the table? Because that's when everything changes. Okay, so let's actually get into some tactical stuff. What we're going to do is remember how I teach you guys how to pitch, right? There's 3 pillars, there's 4 pillars. Okay, so for instance, maybe you sell, I'm going to create a BS, I'm trying to think. Brian, do you have an example of something we can use to sell?
Let's just sell RCA.
So let's use RCA, right? Because you guys could reference it in the experience. Brian, what are the pillars of RCA?
But in terms of our pitch?
Yeah.
So pillar number 1 is all about our training. So pillar number 1 is all about going through the content, going through the training, getting coached. Pillar number 2 is all about fishing, going out, having to land a high ticket position. And then pillar number 3 is ascending into becoming a sales integrator and a top tier closer.
Gotcha. So we got 3 pillars, right? We got, and you know, you can kind of give them like a little bit fancier titles. So if it was me, I would say the first one's download or calibrate. We're going to calibrate you with the right skills to succeed in the alternative education industry. Number 2 is source. We're going to help you source a contract after you have the certification. And then the final one is ascension, which Brian just explained, right? So we go over those. And then at the end, what you're going to do, this is key. You're going to say, gotcha. So you're going to explain number 3. So you're explaining ascension. So you're going to say, gotcha. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, what questions do you have about not just number 3, but all 3 things specifically? That's the process. What questions do you have about the process specifically? Okay. See how I'm using my language there? Process specifically. Okay. Really cool framework I learned from, I think this is like an NLP framework, but I learned it from Kevin Nations, is ESP. Exactly, specifically, precisely. So anytime we want to do, because we can control the answers they give us. Right? If you ask, what questions do you have? What do you think they're going to say a lot of times? Well, what's the price? If you say, what questions do you have about the process? Those 3 things we covered specifically, we can direct their attention to the process, which again, why are we doing that? Because we're not really trying to answer all of their questions right now. We're only trying to answer their questions that are relevant to the process, that are relevant to any sort of uncertainty and ambiguity that this is not the right thing and now is not the right time. Because I need them bought in on the method first, then the sale on the product becomes much easier. There's 2 sales on every sales call. There's a sale on the method, the sale on the product, the sale on funnels, the sale on ClickFunnels, the sale on the ketogenic diet, the sale on the 4-day keto book. You see what I mean? There's 2 sales.
Yeah.
So we're only making the first sale right now. It's an easy sale to make because we don't want to have price on the table. Okay. What questions do you have about the process specifically? Okay. Pretty easy so far. Everybody should be like, okay, done. Awesome. Now, here's what's going to happen next. They're going to start to ask questions. Let me tell you the mistake a lot of people make. A lot of times what they do is the prospect, you know, where we're taught, you know, when I was coming up, I was taught, you know, this is where you can let the prospect kind of drive the call a little bit, and like you answer their questions, and they're just pulling all the information from you, and the next thing you know, they're just be like, how do I buy? It doesn't really work like that. I mean, if you're novice, okay, great. If you want to be a black belt, there's a better way to do it. Okay. So here's the deal. The problem with that approach is a lot of times the prospect starts taking control of the call. They're asking you a bunch of questions. Next thing you know, they're like, is this your best number? Can I reach you next week? Okay. And this is where, you see what I mean? Like it just starts to kind of veer off in the wrong way. So here's the framework of what I do to answer their questions. So they're going to ask a question. Okay. Couple things. Number 1, what you want to do is make sure there's not a hidden objection behind the question they're asking. So I'm going to give the classic example. All right. Let's say you're selling a coaching program to gym owners. All right. And these gym owners, they kind of like, you know, they're busy, right? Meaning that they've misprioritized. It's really what busy means. They've misprioritized, but they're busy. Okay. And they have this propensity towards done for you. But your thing is a coaching program. Okay. So let's say they say, hey, so is there a group coaching? That's one of their questions. Now you could say, let's say you saw a group coaching program. You could say, yes. The problem is you don't know if they're asking that because they want group coaching, if they're just curious, or if because they just invested into a 10K group coaching program before. And they're like, dude, I'm done with that stuff. I don't want to do any of that stuff anymore. It was a terrible experience. You don't know. But you see how that's such an innocent question? But if you just say yes, you could lose the sale. I'm out. You see how that happens? I wish we had a chat. I wish we had a chat now, guys. I wish we had a chat. So here's the thing. How do you actually answer it? You would say, is there a group coaching? Well, I mean, there's elements to what we do that are in a collaborative format. But just so I can answer correctly, is there a specific reason why you're asking? Oh yeah, you know, like I actually was in X, Y, and Z program like 5 months ago, and it's a big investment. And they said group coaching, I'd be able to get all my questions answered, And then what happened was I would get on these calls. There's 177 people on the call, and, they went 3 hours. And if I got my question answered, I had to, wait, 4 hours on a call. And there's only one call a week, right? You see the problem. So now we can actually dig into that experience. So what we would say then is, oh, okay, gotcha. And this also depends on your product, guys. So like, even if you didn't have group coaching, but maybe your program, there's only 10 people on, you could just explain that, right? Or like in a lot of programs, there's elements of one-on-one group and, it's kind of a blend, right? So you could say, yeah, look, like there's group coaching. There's certainly not 170 people on here. Or there's 170 people on our call right now, 170 people on the calls in the program. And on top of that, though, our ones are about 20 to 30 people a piece. And we have a heavy emphasis on one-on-one. So you're going to have a one-on-one onboarding call. You're going to be with your coach this amount of times a week. You see what I mean, guys? Right? So you see how that prevents the objection. And it's pretty easy. The problem is you don't want to like give them the objection and then you got to backpedal. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Brian, do you have anything
on top of that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so I also, dude, I was thinking about this the other night, actually thinking about this. And I was thinking about how you and I would answer a lot of these. And I think one thing that's really cool about the way that we teach sales in closers.io is we're very principle based on how we handle situations, not say this when they say this. And like one of the reasons I love Ray Dalio is because he approaches his life in a format of principles of action, not rules of action. And so the reason I say that is if you were to try and answer the question, like who's a better shooter, who has the better shooting form, Michael Jordan or Steph Curry, you could argue about who has the better shooting form for hours. But the more important part is that they shoot a little bit differently, but they both make the damn shot every single time. And so the reason I give that preface is it'll be cool because I think you and I have different tendencies for how we respond to things that are both equally as effective, that are slightly different approaches. So just as a preface, but to that, what I found is to your point, when people ask questions about specifics, I found that specifics can be very damning in a sales conversation and can become very argumentative. And so if he were to ask me, like, do you do group coaching? I would say yes, but it really just depends on the client. One of our most important values when we work with a new client is that we service and meet them exactly where they're at and make sure that you have everything that you need to succeed. So I give him an answer that feels like I'm responding to his question, but I also basically say, dude, you're going to have everything that you need. So yes, that's a part of it. But one of the most important values for us when you become a client is that we coach and work with you in whatever way is necessary in order for you to get X, Y, and Z result. So it really depends.
Right. Yep. So, and it could be any question. How long is the program?
Yeah.
I mean, you would just say, it depends, right? If it like, I sold something in the past where it was kind of a little bit of a gray area. So you say generally about 10 to 12 weeks. Is there a specific reason why you're asking? I don't know if that's going to be enough. Oh, okay. Why do you think? You see what I mean? So you can get into this stuff. Okay. Now, real fast. Because we had such a weird start, guys, which welcome to I feel like we have everybody on now for the most part. But because we had such a weird start with the Zoom malfunction, I totally forgot to say what I was going to say in the beginning. Obviously, the reason we're doing this is to raise money for the Malou Foundation, which is basically helping victims of sex trafficking. They're a great organization. I've met the people, not Malou, but the people high up who basically run all the organization. And what they do is truly amazing. So I do appreciate all of you guys donating. Obviously, you didn't have to do that. It was certainly not required. And I'm going to match, probably way over match the amount we generated, which I'm not sure what the number is, but I'm going to match that or even overmatch it. And we're all going to donate that 100% of all of this to the Malou Foundation. So thank you guys. And one other thing is I'm going to put the link in the chat. And if any of you guys, look, you can donate anywhere from $1 to $50 is what we put on there. Guys, it would really help if you could donate, even if it's just $5, even if it's an extra $1, even if it's $50. I'm just going to put the chat in there. If anybody wants to donate a little bit extra, It is a huge thing. It's a really, really sad and horrific cause in a lot of ways. You know, I've heard a lot of the stories of people the Malou Foundation have saved or helped, and it's pretty heartbreaking. So I'm going to put that in the chat in here in just a second here. But before I get that, I'll put it in the chat in a second. We're going to cover the next thing, is the temp check. Okay, so we cut. Oh, sorry, we gotta finish the first one. So how to answer the questions, right? So again, we want to uncover the objection. Generally, right? So we say again, group coaching. There's elements to what we do that are collaborative. But before I answer that, is there a specific reason why you're asking? They answer. They say the objection. You handle the objection. You say, does that make sense? Okay, so you answer the question. Does that make sense? They say, yeah. Then you say this key phrase. What else? What are the questions? Okay. So again, you answer the question, then you say, does that make sense? Yes. What else? What are the questions? That little phrase there is very key to helping you keep the lead in the call. Otherwise, they kind of start to take control of the call. But when you have that cadence, what else? What are the questions? I said the same thing every time. What else? What are the questions? What else? What are the questions? What else? What are the questions? And it helps drive the call forward and keep it to where you have control, even though they're asking questions. Hopefully that makes sense. Last thing about answering questions. You want to answer a succinct, complete response in as few words possible. So if you can answer the question in one word, answer it in one word. A lot of times people would ask me questions, I'd just say absolutely. Or I'd say 100%.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah. Stuff like that. And then, you know, sometimes it's like a one-word response can kind of be, you know, it's like, you know, if it feels, if you need to be socially aware, like sometimes it warrants a sentence. Okay, great. But rarely it ever warrants more than 2 sentences. Okay. So somebody actually gave me a really good feedback. Raise your hand, because you guys can raise your hand. So raise your hand if everything has made sense so far. All right, we're getting some raised hands.
There we
and
go.
Also,
some feedback.
Yes, I just put the Jiu-Jitsu Masterclass link. Obviously, it's a link to purchase, like not purchase, but donate to get onto the webinar. But if you guys want to donate a little bit more, even if it's just $1, it helps, guys. Even if it's just $1, if you want to donate a little bit more, just pull that up on your screen right now. Donate whatever you want to donate. Obviously, it's going to double register you for this, but it doesn't matter because we're having this right now. Okay. We'll also make sure we email you guys the recording after for those of you guys who attended live. So the next phase is the temp check, right? So again, we're not even at the price drop yet. So after I keep saying, what else? What are the questions? What else? What are the questions? Lower your hand, guys. Oh, I could actually do it myself. What else? What are the questions? All right. Well, once they say, no, I don't have any other questions. I say, cool. How do you feel? How do you feel about the process specifically? We covered those 3 things, right? To help you get to insert goal, to help you get to your gym doing $20,000 a month. How do you feel about the 3 steps we covered to help you get there? Do you feel like that's what you need? Okay. So you see how I asked that question there. Now, what I'm looking for is like, dude, that's 100% what I need. Oh man, it sounds amazing. I've been looking for this. I'm looking for like this certainty.
I'm 10 out of 10 on the process. Makes sense.
But what I'm not looking for is, this sounds good, right? That's not certain, right? So we're looking for that certainty. Now, if we get anything other than a good response like that, sounds good. I'm like, sounds good. So like, what's really going on? Like, just if you could be honest with you for a second. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, I hate this guy, I want to get out the phone. 10 being like, that's exactly what I need. Where do you feel like you fall at exactly? Okay. Now, if you know, if they say if it's 7 can be iffy, if they say 6 or below, you're not in a good spot. I don't know how many 6s close, but I don't get many 6s. I don't get any 6s. But when you're coming up, if somebody gives you a 6, you kind of know it's probably not going to go very well. I'm not saying you couldn't close them, but man, generally you're probably going to fall somewhere between the 7 and the 9. And whatever they say, you're going to say gotcha. And what does the 8 mean to you specifically? Gotcha. What do you think is specifically keeping you from being a 9 or a 10? Right? If they start to say price, investment, no, I'm talking about the process specifically. Like in terms of the three things, are you 10 out of 10 on thinking that's what you need to get to where you want to go? Investment and everything aside, we'll cover that in a second. You see what I mean? So we're just getting embodied on the method here. One of the key phrases I like if they're a 9 is like, especially if they're just like, well, like nothing's a 10 out of 10, nothing's 100% certain. I'm like, dude, you're 100% right. Like it's not even 100% certain that you're going to wake up tomorrow. So to me, if you're a 9 out of 10, that's about as close as 100% certain as you're ever going to be. So I think you're in exactly the right place. A little reframe there. So anyways, raise your hand, guys, if that made sense. That's the temp check. Okay, cool. Awesome. We're good on the hands. Thank you. Thank you. And so now we're going to the big three. So, well, obviously, we'll just keep going with this. If they ever ask for the price, you're going to go into the price, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Or if they don't ask for it, you just say, gotcha, you ready for the investment? Are you ready for the next steps? You just say something like that, like, yeah, okay, great. And then so you say something like this. So I handle the majority of so-and-so, like if I'm selling for Brian, let's say I handle the majority of Brian's enrollment, so you're going to process the investment with me. Then once that happens, what we're going to do is we're going to, and you explain the next steps very paint by numbers, okay? So maybe what we would say is, then after that, what I'm directly going to do is give you access to everything. And then also make sure you get booked on your implementation call. That call is going to be where and then you just outline exactly what's going to happen on the call. So what I used to say, and the thing I used to say way back in the day, is I used to say, we're going to book your implementation call. That call is going to set your implementation pathway. So that's essentially going to be when we're going to be, how often we're going to be, how we're going to be, things we need you to do right away, things we're going to do for you, or resources we're going to get for you. So essentially, you can leave that call with absolute certainty and feeling 100% clear on your next steps, what those are, and what you need to be doing to moving forward. Now, so does that make sense? Cool. And the investment is just whatever. The investment is just 15K. The investment is just 5K. Okay, so that's the price drop. You guys know how to do that. Now, obviously, you're silent. The big thing with price drops and silence is a lot of times y'all will be like Speedy Gonzalez. So it's like you're talking so fast, you anvil drop the pitch, and you're like, and the investment's 10K. And then they're like, you still there? Like, yeah. Like I thought I was supposed to be silent, So little pro tip here is you want to slow down the pace a little bit near when you get to the end. Like they're asking the questions, how do you feel, the temp check, slow it down.
Yep, and even everybody notice like how Cole's tonality changes when he starts going into it. One mistake I see happen all the time, Cole just alluded to being fast, is the other thing is like everybody puckers up when they're pitching and price dropping, and they get very rigid. So it's like, okay, next steps are very simple. It's 9,800, and it's like it's almost like the person's like waiting for you to like say the next thing because you're just like, yep, it's 9,800, and then you stop. And if you notice, like when Cole pitches and when we do it, it's like, cool. So next steps are very simple. You're gonna process the investment with me, yada yada yada. It's just 9,800. So it's downward inflection, spoken with very soft certainty, very much like it's now, the ball is now in your court. It's 9,800. And then we wait. Whereas like a lot of people, it's almost they're like, yep, so it's 9,800. And it's, see how the difference between those two, like when you're all tense and puckered up, it's like, it's this, a lot of the awkward silence is the prospect's just like, are you going to say something? Like, am I supposed to say something? Like, where are we going with this? Whereas when you're very soft, but very certain, next steps are very simple. It's 9,800. And it's a downward inflected period, end of sentence. It invites them to be the next person to speak. Whereas if you're too rigid and you go too quickly, the social cue is very confusing. Like they're not even sure what's supposed to happen next. And so there's all this awkward silence, but then you in the back of your head are like, well, if I speak first, I definitely lose. And the prospect is like, I don't know what's going on. This is like kind of weird. And then you're both just like, you're both being weird, and then it's really hard to recover from. So that gentle, certain downward inflection, end of sentence, will invite them to then say, okay, great, like how do we get started? Just a small nuance that makes a big difference.
Yeah, badass. All right, so now we're actually going to objections. We had to cover that first, okay? So the big three: uncertainty, finance, and support. Okay, I already kind of covered this, so if you missed it, you can catch the recording. Now, what's key is obviously with the temp check, we're trying to move uncertainty already to begin with. However, sometimes you already get it, you can't get rid of it, right? So if you do get it at the end, it's not, not the end of the world. You're not at the end of the world. But what we want to do is we have to handle the uncertainty-based objection first. And then what we want to do is handle probably spouse or finance. It really doesn't matter after that. But typically what I would recommend, what I teach, is you handle uncertainty first, spouse second, and third. Because once you have them to where the only thing is the money, it becomes much, much easier.
It's just logistics at that point.
Yeah, much easier. And even with spouse, like if it's a spouse or a partner, if they're 100% sold, if they're 100% bought in that this is the right thing, now is the right time, it's much easier for them to convince their spouse if they're truly bought it. Okay. So the big thing is the uncertainty. The big thing is anything that's keeping them from being less than 100% certain that this is the right thing, now is the right time. Okay. So here's the deal. Let's say we're going to start with the classic, uncertainty-based objection. Okay. I say, and the investment's just 9,800. Okay, cool. Well, I want to think about it. Right. What you're going to say is you're going to paste the first objection. A lot of you guys probably know this, but it's worth covering because I don't see it done correctly all the time. So let's say they say, I want to think about it. Honestly, they could say anything. This what I'm about to teach you, pasting the first objection, you could use this in any circumstance, any objection, spouse, partner, finance, anything. I need a proposal. I needed this. I need to talk to your client, whatever it is. Okay. You say, no problem. Just so I can stay organized on my end, like, how do you feel? Like we talked about earlier in terms of those 4 things, and you mentioned you were like a 9 out of 10. Now the investment on the table, what do you think is keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is the right thing and now is the right time? Okay. So I like that language. If you didn't use the scale of 1 to 10, you can go back. Like if you didn't use it, you kind of got to vary it because you're really asking almost the same question as a temp check. But you could say, how do you feel? You could say the scale of 1 to 10, but if you've used it already, you kind of used it already. Yeah. Now, granted, keep in mind, if you have a really good, the thing is, as I got more experienced, as I had a really good committing phase and a really, really good temp check, I would handle a lot of these things even before the price. And I didn't really have many issues with price objections. A lot of times it was just finance and spouse. Because I was like, I hate handling uncertainty after the price drop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyways, what do you think is keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is the right thing, now is the right time? Okay. You need to figure out what it is. All right. And if they said, I want to think about it, there's something there. Okay. Now, even if they say, I don't have the money, it's a lot. I need to organize my funds. I need to transfer funds. Gotcha. No problem. Money and everything aside, is there anything else that's keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is the right thing and now is the right time? This is what you want to do. Okay. If they say, sounds great, man, I just really need to run this by my spouse. No problem at all. For you personally, like, how do you feel? Like, is there anything else that's keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is what you want? You see what I mean? Okay. Now, a few other variations of this you can add. I've done all these. Gotcha. So just so I can stay organized on my end, are you in a should I do this place or more of a how can I do this place? Are you in a place where you're like, I'm 100% certain this is what I need to do. It's just how I need to make it happen. Or are you still like not even certain that this is what you want to do? Are you should or are you how? That's a good one. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Now, once you figure out whatever the thing you're isolating is, then you're going to double tie down. This is big. Okay, so let's say they want. I said I want to think about it. Anything else? Okay, so no problem. What is keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is the right thing? Now's the time. Okay, if they start waffling, oh no, I want to do it. It's like, no, for real. Like I could tell there's something. So what's really going on? So a lot of times, like if you mind read and call it out, they'll be like, oh, I can't bullshit this guy. They just tell you. Okay, it's very, very key. Especially if they say something like, no, I think I want to do this. I'm like, think you want to do it. Like, come on, man. Like what's keeping you from being like, this isn't F yes. Like what's really going on? What's really coming up for you? I just got to be direct and real present with them, because they're like, like they'll almost like laugh. Like, yeah, like this is what's happening. So once we get the thing, and I'm like, okay, gotcha. Well, that aside, being a little bit concerned about this working for you, or you being able to do this despite your work schedule, whatever it is, aside, are you 100% in? And I even do that with my hands. I'm like, I take the objection. It's like, I'm talking with the person. The objection is between us. I put it here. I do that like naturally, but I put it here. So I'm like, gotcha. Worried about your work schedule and if you can actually do this. That aside, are you 100%? Gotcha. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. So tell me more about what's going on. So now, once we have the isolation of the uncertainty-based objection, now we're going to go into a rediscovery. Okay? Tell me more about what's going on. Maybe they just don't think it's going to work for them. Oh, I've just done a lot of programs in the past, and I've bought courses, and like I'm just a little bit, I guess I'm a little bit nervous that it's going to work for me. Gotcha. Well, can I ask you a question about that? So if you come in, are you 100%, we have a proven pathway that's worked for, hundreds and hundreds of people. Are you 100% going to follow directions and just execute the path? Number one, yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. And then number two, when you get stuck and you run into a snag, which you will, because what you're trying to do is, it's not easy. You're going to be pushing outside of your comfort zone. You're going to be learning new skills. You're going to be taking action in a way that you've never taken action before. So when you do get stuck, are you going to raise your hand for help, or are you going to bury your head in the sand? I want to raise my hand for help. Cool. So if you're going to do exactly what the process lays out, and you're going to raise your hand for help when you need it, and finally, the process you're following is not something that just we've done to do this successfully ourselves, but at the same time, we have 1,000+ case studies of people doing it as well successfully. Then why wouldn't this work for you? Okay, so that's one you can use. Another thing you do is a lot of times, you see how it's like, I kind of make it a little bit ridiculous. So what happens is, a lot of times they'll start waffling. Yeah, I mean, I look, is it just nerves? And so what I always want to get them to admit when they start waffling is that it's just nerves. I never say fear, because like that doesn't, it's not fear, but you could say, is it just a little bit of butterflies? A little bit of nerves? Okay. Once you can get them to admit it's nerves, it's done. I'm closing every single time. Okay. Raise your guys' hand. Raise the hand real fast if this is helping you guys.
Dude, I think my favorite closing framework of all of mine is around nerves.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a few. So once you get it to nerves, I try to like really get it to nerves, because I know I can just nail this one. And so I'm like, okay, great. Like, yeah, I'm just a little bit nervous. Good. The nerves are good. That means there's some weight to it. There's some meaning to it. Nothing ever great in the world was built by somebody who wasn't a little bit nervous at first. So that's good. I would be worried about you if you weren't a little bit nervous. So here's the thing. The real question is like, not what's going on with the nerves and if you should do this or not. Yeah. The real question is, in this moment, who do you want to be? Because right now, you told me you wanted to be the type of person who's a real estate agent making $20,000 a month and is listing the best homes in town. However, right now, you're not that person, right? Which is why you're on the phone. So the real question is not like the nerve, That's not really what this is about. The real question is, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the type of person who, when they feel those nerves, stalls up and doesn't take action and collapses? Or do you want to be the type of person who can feel the fear and do it anyways? Do you want to be the type of person who, when you bump over to that glass wall of nerves and of uncertainty and of your comfort zone, you can break through it and do the thing that a lot of people who are trying to do what you want to do can't do, which is why they don't make the money you want to make. So which one of those two people do you want to be? Okay, so just kind of rip that one off the top. Brian, what's your favorite with nerves?
Dude, so my favorite is, I always say, is it cool if I like, this is exactly how I say it. And I want everybody to pay attention to the pacing and the tonality of how I say it, because it's really specific. I've practiced it thousands of times. So if it's Cole, I'd go, Cole, is it cool if I share like something that I've learned from my mentors who are way more successful with me that like finally helped me break through some things? Mm. Yeah. Dude, what I've learned is there's two parts to our brain. There's like our monkey brain that tries to keep us safe. And there's the part of our brain that like actually wants to go be successful, right? It's like, I always say it's like the part of our brain that like keeps us awake at night. It's like the pit in our stomach that believes that we can eventually do something greater than we're doing now, that we really want to listen to. But then there's this other part that like just tries to keep us safe. It's the monkey brain. And they're constantly fighting. That's like what you're feeling right now, right? Like what you're feeling right now is this crazy pull where part of you just wants to be like, dude, I want to do this. Here's my credit card. And then the other part of you is like, just hang up Zoom, like get off with this guy. And it's like this little freak out. Is that ringing true at all? Mm. And so, dude, the reason this is so important to understand is, man, like how many people do you know that have told you stories about Google stock in 2002, or they knew about Bitcoin in 2010, or they knew about Tesla stock in 2012, and all these opportunities over and over and over that they could have got involved in and they didn't, right? You can probably think of a lot. And the reason is because they listened to their monkey brain. And if I was selling Remote Closing Academy, I would say, dude, this alternative education industry is projected to grow 20 to 30 times over the next 10 years. It's literally the future. So what we're talking about here is buying Bitcoin in 2010. It's getting in on the ground floor of an industry that's projected 20 to 30x growth over the next 10 years. And so, dude, what you need to do is you need to focus and listen to that part of your brain that's going to allow you to be successful, not the monkey part of your brain that everybody else in the world listen to. Because you and I, dude, we're the people that listen to the part of our brain and take off. We don't want to be with everybody else where in 5 years we're like, oh, I knew about the alternative education industry 5 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. The big things here, a couple things. You can see how Brian said you and I and like everybody else, right? So it's like an us versus them type of thing, right? So you and I, people like us, we think about it this way. We make decisions in a way that reflects this type of thing, this type of value, right? Everybody else, 1% of people make more than $200,000 a year, right? People like you or I, or people like you and me, we make decisions in a way where we know when we're scared, we can feel the fear and do it anyway. The reason 99% of people never break the 200K a year income ceiling is because when they get to that glass wall, when they get to that glass barrier of fear, they collapse instead of expand. They retract instead of break through. Right? So let's not be like them. Let's be like the person who we both know who you are and who you're really developing to be. Stuff like that, right? So the other thing too is identity is one of the highest drivers of behavior. So I think I have this in the training somewhere, but it's been a long time since I've taught this. But there's like a pyramid, and there's certain things like values, beliefs, etc., that drive behavior. The top one is identity. We want to make decisions who are consistent, right? We talked about the consistency bias, consistent with who we believe that we are. And a lot of times, like Brian said, there's kind of two parts to people. There's a part that essentially is like their highest version of themselves and their idealistic version of themselves. And there's the part that is like their crying inner child, wounded person who's retracting and basically fight or flight, I'm out of here. And so not only are we helping them make the best decision for themselves on the calls, at the same time, What we're doing is we're holding them to their own highest standard of the person they really want to be and the person they really want to become. That's why one of the best things you could say on the calls is, wait a minute. Earlier, you told me you want to do blank, blank, and blank. You want to be the type of person who could blank. Now you're saying that insert all the negative behaviors. So what's really going on? And I'm not trying to tell you that to pressure you. I'm trying to tell you that because you told me these things earlier and you told me them with confidence and you told me them that you were serious about them. And I want to hold you to that high standard, but that's not the person who's showing up right now. Right? So who do you want to be? It's a hard question to answer. I want to be that type of person. Gotcha. So it's just a little bit of nerves. See, now we're right back to the nerves. Right? So that's uncertainty. Now we're doing a little bit interactive part here. Okay? A little bit interactive part. Put in, we're not going to be able to get to everybody's, but put in the Q&A some uncertainty-based objections y'all want to help with. And I'm going to start with one who, so Anonymous says, and Brian, I'll let you handle this one.
Cool.
How do you handle we want to discuss amongst ourselves objection with 3+ business partners all on the phone at once? Let's just say there's 3 business partners. They're like, sounds great. We want to discuss with ourselves and get back to you.
Love it. Love it. I have a quick story. I remember a closing call where thankfully I had the husband and the wife on the call. And I always try to get both because if I can talk to both of them, I can handle it way easier. So I remember I get to the end of the call and the husband was like, okay, cool. Like let us talk about it. And then what's the best way? Can I email you? And throughout the call, I noticed that his wife was like nodding her head a lot. She wasn't answering as many questions, but I could tell that she was very engaged. And so I looked at her and we'll just say her name is Deborah. And I was like,
Sue.
Deborah.
Her name's Sue.
Sue. I was like, Sue, well, just curious, like, Sue, how do you feel about this out of 10? And she was like, oh, I'm a 10 out of 10. I was like, got it. So you're saying that like this is a go for you? You think it makes sense? And she's like, yeah, it does. And I looked at her husband and I was like, well, seems like we're ready to get started. And he looked at his wife and she just looked at him and she smiled and she shrugged. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And I signed him up. So I always think like, if you have business partners and they're all like, well, let us talk about it. If I was closing Cole and he was like, let me go talk to Brian and Mitchell, I would immediately identify who among the 3 is the top dog. And if I could identify that, I would just try to get him to say that he's 10 out of 10. And if he's 10 out of 10, then I would say, dude, let's just do it. Where like if you're 10 out of 10, it makes sense for us to do it. And then if you guys have issues, let me know. Let's say they're all 3 equal partners. I would literally just go person by person. Jim, where are you at with this out of 10? Just so I can understand. Got it. You're 10 out of 10. Mark, where are you at with this out of 10? Alex, looks like you're the only guy, dude, that's not certain. It's a 2 to 3 vote. Like, it looks like we're good to go. Yeah. It looks like we're good to go with the other 2. Where are you at out of this? So I just person by person, where are you at out of 10? I honestly just think about it as like I'm just closing 3 people instead of 1.
Yeah. So there you go. Let me say this. This is the main thing I was going to say too. So remember the temp check days. This is very key. Then on the temp check, you get them all, right? What do you think about this? Sue, what do you think about this? Brad, what do you think about this? And also remember the top dog is not always the one who's talking, but you can kind of tell. It's like sometimes the top dog is a reserved, like, old bull, right? He's like hanging in the back, but you can tell by the cadence that he's going to be the one who makes the decision, So you got to watch out for those things. But the biggest thing is, like Brian said, getting everybody involved. All right. Now, let's just say you do that and for whatever reason you can't close it. It's like, it is what it is. Okay. If that is the case, what you want to say is, I mean, honestly, still, like, I would say some language along the lines of like, if they were like, yeah, we never make decisions on the call, if they just started pulling all this stuff, like really putting their foot in the ground and you had a perfect call, you couldn't have done anything previous. They're putting their foot in the ground. And they're like, oh, we really need to get it, inside because we have the promotional calendar. We need to make sure this fits in, la, da, 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 da. I'm going to say, gotcha, no problem. I have no issues if you do that. But like man to man, just tell me in your gut right now, do you feel like you're going to do this? Brad, do you feel like you're going to do this, right? You really need to get that. And eliminate any sort of uncertainty, any sort of ambiguity. Then what you need to do is gotcha. So if I let you guys off and you guys collaborate and we talk tomorrow and you feel the same way you feel as you felt as you told me that right now, where are we going from here? If they say anything else, then moving forward, you have an issue. And you see what I did there? By the very nature of saying, so I got a good temp check. Oh, you're 100% going to do it. We just need to look at our calendar and make sure. Okay, great. So, when we talk tomorrow, after you guys have spoken about it, when we talk tomorrow, if you feel the same way as you just told me you feel right now, then we're 100% moving forward. Right? Yes or no, right? We need to get that commitment. And you see, when I said that, I presupposed and seeded that we're going to talk tomorrow without even asking if we're going to talk tomorrow. Does that make sense, guys? Raise the hand if that makes sense. Love the engagement. It pumps me up, man. I'm pissed we don't have a chat.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's do some more. Okay. Yeah. So Tom says, Brian, I'll let you answer this one too. Tom says, I keep getting people who say they are a 7. Then when I ask, what is holding them back from being a 9 or a 10? They say, well, it sounds good, but I just don't know until I see it.
Love this. Okay, cool. That's totally fine. Help me understand. Like when you say see it, and when you say like, can you help me understand like what you're looking to see, just so I can maybe help?
Yeah.
A lot of the times it's almost always going to be like, well, like, especially if you're B2B, it's like, well, I've been in a lot of other programs and this might just be the same thing, blah, 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 blah. Or like, oh, well, like, I just want to know like how it's all going to work. When somebody says they want to see it, it's usually because they just can't picture what it's going to look like to work with you, is basically what they're saying. So I'll just say, okay, yeah, no worries. Let me just share my screen right now. I'll walk you through what the training portal looks like. I'll give you a glimpse inside of our community so you can see exactly what it'll look like to be a client of ours. So I think if they're saying, I just need to see it, like you just need to show it to them. You just need to be like, yeah, no worries. I'll show it to you right now. Mm-hmm. Where are you at out of 10 now? So we got a lot of these, dude. We can just start rapid firing them.
Yeah. So we have are there ever any times when you would follow up with ask for a follow-up? Yeah, sometimes. It just really depends. Like there is times where you got to do one. I'd have to know, like, to give you an exact, Lydia, by the way, is who I'm answering the question. To give you an exact, like, yes, I would follow up, yes, I wouldn't. I have to know a little bit more. Lydia also asked, can I take a few days to think about it? So here's what I would say to them. I would say, look, Lydia, I want you to feel really good about this. So just so I can stay organized on my end, how do you feel? Like we covered those 3 things earlier. Do you still feel, and especially with the investment on the table, do you feel like that's what you need to be able to get your real estate career to $20,000 a month, like we talked about? So in a guarantee, can I take a few days to think about it? If I ask that question, and you see how I didn't say yes. So I did use a little bit different one than no problem. I said, look, Lydia, I want you to feel really good about this. So just so I can stay organized on my end. I always use that phrase for whatever reason. Just so I can stay organized on my end. Like, how do you feel? Or do you feel like this is what you need 100% to get to blank? And I love using that 100%. Because they're like, okay. Even if they say, okay, I have my answer. What's really going on? I'll boom, cut them off. Because I want to make it so they're like, oh, I can't hide. I want to have this conversation where it's like, the frame is like, we're just going to have a fucking honest conversation. Hopefully that helps. We got Oliver.
I got the next few locked and loaded. I read them while you were responding.
All right, dude, hit it.
All right, so I want to speak to my financial advisor, like how to move money around. Yeah, like let me go look. Yeah, no worries, dude. Super simple. What we do in this situation is we just put $1,000 deposit down. And then that way, if you need to go move money around, I can always refund that deposit if you want to pay in a full amount in a different way. But we'll just put the deposit down. I can get you onboarded. That way you can go move money around and we can get the process started. And then if they say no to that, it's a different objection and you need to chunk down on that.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that one, Brian, is I would say, yeah, no problem. Now, just so I can stay organized on my end, you gotta find another phrase, by the way. Just so I have clarity here. Are you saying you're to ask your financial advisor if you can do this, or you need to ask them what's the best way to pay for it? Like you're 100% going to do it. You're just finding out the most efficient way based on your finances. Yeah. They're like, oh no, like, oh, it's that one. Gotcha. So you're 100% in. Like, I'm not gonna laugh, but okay, so you're 100% in. Perfect. And then you hit up with something with what Brian says there.
Yep. Van said, we want to get a couple other quotes first. So I used to, before RCA, I sold in a space that was really competitive. We had a lot of competitors, especially at the peak. And so it was very, very, very common for me on sales calls to hear like, oh, I have like 4 other sales calls set up. So I handled it in a really, really, I'll be honest, it's a little bit of a cheeky way. It kind of makes me smile in the way that I do it, but it worked for me every single time. Every single time. So if it's more B2B, like let's say you're doing like a marketing agency and they're like, yeah, the project sounds good, we just need to get other couple of quotes. If it's more B2B, I would just go down the line of questioning of like, what exactly are you looking for? When you say other quotes, like, do you feel uncomfortable with this? It's more of just tying down uncertainty if they don't want to move forward with you in a very B2B sense. If it's more B2C, i.e. like, yeah, I'm looking into a couple other things, or I have a call set up with another program. This is what I would do. I actually think I maybe got 1 or 2 deals against Cole way back in the day with this one. It's money. And dude, when I say this, Cole's gonna be like, I would have got screwed on this one. But basically what I would do is I'd say, yeah, it's no worries. It's totally cool. Can I walk you through some thoughts on how I would think about this decision? They say yes. And I would say, one of the things that's really important to us is that anybody that decides to become a client, they go do all the research possible and they feel 100% that we have their best interest in mind. So I don't want to say anything negative about anybody you're going to talk to, but can I walk you through what might happen when you get on a call with them? Yes. Okay, great. They're going to do everything in their power to get you to say yes on that call because they're not confident in you going out and speaking with other programs. So more often than not, they're just going to try really, really, really hard and do everything that they can to get you to say yes. And if they're not willing to let you go talk to other programs, in my book, that's a red flag. And they'd go, oh yeah, that's a good point. And then every single time they would text me and they'd be like, you're not going to believe it. I just got off the phone with so-and-so's company. They tried so hard to get me to close. And I just said, no, I want to sign up with you. So that worked really, really well for me when I was selling in a more competitive space.
I use the same thing, dude. I use that same exact thing.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. Yeah, it's basically like, and I would even throw in there, yeah, if they have any sort of like price drop thing where, oh, it's 15K today, but it's 9K, or it's 15K normally, but it's only 9K if you pay today, you gotta put that on the pocket. Yeah, I mean, I think, doesn't that speak for itself? They're like, yeah. So like, I don't know, like if anything like that happens or there's like super high pressure, I think the decision is made. So here's what I would say is like, here's what I would do next is let me talk to, like, let's say I sold for Brian. I'd say, honestly, I think Brian's gonna have some thoughts on your situation. Would you mind if we said, like, when are these calls? Oh, okay, great. So your last call is Thursday. Okay, 4. What would you think if we talked Friday? What's your 10 a.m.? Okay, great, 10 a.m. Let's talk Friday at 10 a.m. I'm gonna run your situation by Brian, and I'm gonna come back to you on Friday with a game plan of Brian's thoughts on also what you should do in order to be able to get your real estate business to $20,000 a month, specifically focusing on listings. That way, not only you have my take on it, but you have 100% certainty once you hear Brian's take as well. So you see how I just opened up that loop to where, because here's the thing with the multiple quotes. The person who goes last usually wins. Mm-hmm. So first or last, but usually last. So what I want to do is open up a loop to where they gotta show up to my call to figure out like the last bit of information. And also I won't give them payment plans. I'll say, and also run Brian by your financial situation. Typically we don't break it up at all, but honestly, like I'm pretty sure he'll be okay with splitting it up into multiple payments or doing some sort of financing. And that'll make it a little bit easier for you as well. But let me talk with him and then I'll tell you what we can do on the next one.
So good.
You know, so I use stuff like that, and then you throw in the whole like, and if anybody tries to close you on that very call, la da da da. What's the next one you got?
Sounds good, but I never make decisions same day. I always sleep on major decisions. This one makes me upset. I hate when people pull this one. For me, what I found with this whole like same day thing, for me personally, I hate doing the whole dialogue of like, oh, well, successful people, money loves speed. I don't like trying to like loop all the way around, reframing them on like same day decisions. I just found that takes a lot of time. Most of the time, they just stay like very adamant on like, no, that's just the way I do things. And some sales trainers will be like, you just got to keep looping and change their belief system on that. With this objection specifically of like same day, I don't go that route. The way I always go is I say, got it. Can I tell you what I think that we should do? Yes. Okay, cool. Here's what I think we should do. Let's put $1,000 deposit down. I'll fully onboard you into the program. And if at any moment what I told you we will deliver is not in alignment with what you're receiving as a client, I'll give you 100% refund because we didn't uphold our end of the contract. That way, it's a no risk decision for you. Either we deliver and you have a great experience, or we don't.
Yeah.
So, because then if they're like, well, I still need a day to think about it. It's like, well, help me understand. Like, if it's a no risk decision and you're 10 out of 10, I guess I'm confused on like what would hold you back from it just moving forward.
Yeah. So let me add this, and I will say the training does have this whole thing in there, but like, I was actually reading it before this, where it's like, the way you make decisions creates everything else for you in life and business, right? So like the way you make decisions before has created the results that you have now. And ultimately those results are the exact results you're trying to change, which is why you're on this call. So in order to change those results, we have to change the pattern of how you make decisions. Look, if you gotta have like a weak-willed person or person who's like right at the freaking cusp, that can work. Again, it's a hard one to deliver because you gotta be like you gotta have like a little bit of a Tony Robbins moment to hit that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit like even me, I was like kind of, yeah. So similar to Brian, I would do the same thing. However, I would personally see first, like, gotcha, okay, no problem. Aside from that, like everything about that aside, are you 100% in? Like, let me say this. You said you feel really good. You feel 10 out of 10. If you wake up tomorrow feeling the same exact way you feel right now, are we 100% moving forward? And are you 100% putting the entire amount on your credit card? Yes. Okay, look, can I be honest with you? You told me earlier that you don't want the last 10 years to be like the next 10 years. And so while I definitely don't want you to make a decision you feel like is rushed, or you feel like it's pressured, or you feel like is not the right decision, I also don't think the best thing for you in this moment is to do nothing. So what I'm willing to do for you is come in now, and then if tomorrow you wake up and in the core of your bones, you feel like you made a terrible decision, 100%, I'll just give your money back. But at the end of the day, I think two things. Not only is it important for you to metaphorically draw the line in the sand and finally say the last 10 years are going to be like the next 10 years, but moreover, you just told me the reason you want to do this is to make an informed decision, right? Well, let me ask you this. Are you more informed from the inside or the outside? I want you to make an informed decision, but the only informed decision you can make is one from actually being inside and seeing the product for yourself. So I'll eliminate all the risk. You can back out if you feel like it was in the core of your bones, the worst thing you've ever done in your entire life. But you need to decide and draw the line in the sand and work with me here so we can get you in and we can get you started. So I'll eliminate the risk. You just let me know, but let's get you going today. Is that fair? You know, something like that. I just made that up on the spot, but that would be a good one. What's next?
I've failed in the past with similar programs. You kind of looped on that one earlier.
Yes, that one's like the one where it's like, gotcha. So you're worried about this is not going to work, or you're worried about this is not going to work for you. Gotcha. Well, are you going to blank? It's like, are you going to 100% put in the work and follow the process? Are you 100% going to raise your hand when you need help? Gotcha. Well, if you're going to do that, and if you're going to put in the work, you're going to raise your hand when you need help, and we've done this for thousands of other people. Why wouldn't this work for you? Is it? Can you just be honest? Is it just nerves? Then you go to the nerves.
Yeah.
What's next?
Are there any other programs or services you offer that are more cost effective, or something else to start with doing to help you grow? Basically, do you have something cheaper?
Yeah. So what I would say here is I'd say, well, tell me about that. Like, are you basically how do you feel about this? Are you 100% in? It's just a way to make this work financially. So we'll cover finances right now because that was going to be on the list of stuff to cover. So Brian, just role play with this. Say the objection and I'll do the thing.
Cool. So yeah, man. I mean, I guess like, do you guys have anything cheaper? This just seems like a little bit of a stretch out of budget right now.
Gotcha. So just to clarify, like, do you not feel like the 10K program is worth it for you to grow your real estate business to 240K a year? Or do you really want to do it? It's just like, you don't know how you're going to make this work financially.
Yeah, I guess I think it'd make more sense for us with just like where we're at right now. If you guys had something that was like 2 or 3 grand, and then when we're farther along, when we have a little bit more income, we could do the $10,000 program. Gotcha.
So do you not feel like the 10,000 is worth it, or do you feel like that's like that would help you get to $20,000 a month, like you talked about? It's just like you don't know how it's going to work financially.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see the value in it. Like, I want to do it at some point. It's just whether or not like we can pull it together right now.
Look, okay, so in that case, let's do some brainstorming. Most of Brian's clients will do the investment right up front. For a lot of clients, depending on the situation, we do come up with something that's a little bit more creative. So are you open to having an honest conversation financially, getting everything on the table so we can see if there's a way for you to do this, or at the very least, we can work towards a game plan in the future? Because we don't have some sort of like light version type of thing.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Cool. So what's your net cash flow coming in the next 30 days?
Next 30 days, net cash flow, probably like 6 grand.
Okay, so that's net, like you're gonna have 6 grand.
Yeah, the business will probably net about 6 grand.
Okay, well, what's your cash on hand right now? Exactly.
In the business account, maybe 2,000.
Gotcha. What about your personal?
Personal, I think, I don't know, 3 grand right now.
Gotcha. Is that checking or is that savings?
That's all together.
Gotcha. So 5K?
Yeah, between personal and business.
Okay, cool. Credit?
Credit's pretty tapped, dude. We've been buying a lot, spending money on ads, so maybe like a couple $100, but it's kind of just pay it off and have a little bit of line here and there.
Okay, look, and obviously the finances and everything aside, you really want to do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see the value in it for sure.
Cool. So look, I don't think the best thing for you obviously is to spend your last penny right now, but I also don't think the best thing for you is to do nothing. So what I'd be willing to do is let you in for a third today. So 3,300. And then that way you can come in, we can get your marketing campaign up in your local area, targeting those affluent buyers. You can get some appointments in the door. You can get some meetings. You can lock in some listings where you know already for the next 30 days is going to ROI, even though I know it's not going to close in the next 30 days, but you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, when that's the next payment comes around of another 3,300 and you have the 6K coming in, not only are you able to make that work financially, but at the same time, you know you're in the right spot, you know you're in good hands, and you know you're well on your way to $20,000. So if I'm willing to do that for you, are you willing to move forward right now?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it.
That's how you would handle that one. That's also the financing.
Everybody raise your hand. That was good. That was fantastic.
Okay.
Why
is it you that I should trust?
Feels too good to be true. I have a good one for this.
Okay, cool.
When somebody's like, yeah, I just don't know, blah, 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 blah. Here's exactly how I do it. So I slow down and I say, Matthias, I think that's how you pronounce your name. Hopefully it is. Matthias, totally hear you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you a text right now, and I'll pick up my phone and I'll go to the calendar invite and I'll say, did you just get my text? Yes. Okay, great. That's my personal cell phone. I hope you hear me when you say that. Like when I say this, I really care about you and your success. At any time, as you're a client of ours, not only will you have your coach, but if at any time you need anything, text me or call me. I'm here for you. I got your back. I'm not going to let you fail with this. So if it's a more B2C offer, that's how I handle it. I just send them a text and say, that's my personal cell phone. If it's B2B, you just flash a bunch of case studies and you say, well, so-and-so trusted us, so-and-so trusted us, so-and-so trusted us. Do you think that they don't know how to make good buying decisions? Of course they do. You should trust us as well. If it's B2C, it needs to be a little bit more of an emotional connection. I found sending them a text and saying like, that's my personal cell phone is a very good like extension of an olive branch, and it instills a lot of trust in people.
Nice. I like it. Hey, Ryan, so you asked about talking to a few other coaches. We kind of covered that other one with the quotes. Sam asked, I don't know if I'm going to have the time. So I'll answer this in a B2B perspective. And then Brian, you can answer it in a B2C perspective. Like if somebody's, because it kind of is different. Like if somebody's, if it's non-ROI or it's like, oh, I'm working full time and I want to start a business versus like B2B. So for B2B, it essentially is like, okay, look, well, can you tell me a little bit about that? Okay, great. Well, what are your priorities right now? Like, what is the thing you're most focused on right now? Okay, great. Look, earlier on the call, we identified that right now in the last month, you've had 5 sales calls, right? Lead generation is your biggest constraint period. We've also identified that the 4 things we covered to fix your lead generation and get that system in place, you said is 100% what you need, no questions asked. So the top priority you need to have right now is number 1, focused 100% on the constraint. Number 2, the thing you said was the best way to fix the constraint is the 4-step thing we talked about earlier, right? So what's really going on? Like that's what I would even like laugh there. I'm like, what's really going on? Because with you, the biggest thing you need to do to move your business forward is do 100% focus on this. Is to 100% do the thing you think is best to fix your lead generation, which earlier you told me on your call is the 4-step process we talked about earlier. So anything other than that is a misprioritization. Oh, well, dude, I got a wedding and we're going to Italy and my fiance's this. And it's like, so we kind of have this 2-week period. I don't want to use the program during the 2 weeks, because if I use the program during the 2 weeks, instead of 12 weeks, I'm really only getting 10 weeks. So I want to start after them. Gotcha. So basically, you having the whole 2-week wedding thing in Italy, all that aside, you're 100% in. When do you get back from Italy? Okay, you get back August 31st. So if we're talking August 31st and you feel the same exact way you feel right now talking with me right now, you're 100% moving forward. Okay, well, look, I have an idea. I don't think the best thing for you is obviously to lose 2 weeks in the program if you're going to be off in Italy sailing under the bridges and all that stuff. I also don't think the best thing for you is to do nothing. So what I'm willing to do for you is I'll buy you a month. So I'll give you an extra 30 days. That way you can get started now. You can knock out the onboarding. You can get completely oriented. You can get the pre-work done. You can focus on the first couple of action items to where then August 31st comes around. You might even already have 2 or 3 clients from this. And that's when you're officially getting started. That's when we're actually getting the ball rolling. So if I'm willing to do that for you, are you willing to move forward right now? So you see how I did that? That's how I'd handle one of those things. Do you have like a B2C one? I mean, it's kind of similar, but I don't know if you have like a B2C one.
Yeah, so for B2C, you always want to tie it back to their identity if they're saying they don't have time. Because it's almost like, imagine if somebody was like, well, I just don't have time to like go to the gym so I can lose weight and be healthy. It's like, dude, you make time to go to the gym and be healthy. Like, it's not a question like, you're going to die of heart disease. Like, what do you mean you don't have time? And so that's how I think about it from you need to change your circumstances to make more money situation. It's like, well, okay, got it. Let's break this down. What you really need is 1 to 2 hours a day right now to go through the training. You're telling me it's impossible for you to either wake up early or go to bed later or in the car or whatever to find 1 to 2 hours a day to go through the training so that we can actually start making steps towards your goal. That's an impossible thing to do right now. And then as soon as you say it like that, so that with an impossible, it's going to attack their identity really closely. And they're going to be like, well, I guess I could if it's only 1 to 2 hours, because they want to fall back in line with the identity of somebody that makes it happen. Then it's just like, okay, cool. Let's do that then. let's get forward. Let's get started. Let's move forward. So always with B2C, just tie it back to their identity.
Got it. We got kind of two similar ones. So Max says, how would you handle if you had a book call with a buyer and they respond with, I'm happy to have an informative call, but just to be transparent, I'm not looking to purchase any coaching programs, still happy to connect if you are. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that one kind of sounds,
For me, that's just like, bring it on. Bring it on, Mags. That's what you think now.
Yeah, like, well, so there's kind of two ways. There's kind of two ways to that. It's like, okay, are you in the best situation? No, like, kind of sucks. But look, if you already got the hour blocked and it's like they're already on your calendar, hey, let's just go for it. And then in your transition, I say, look, what I could say is we could definitely help. I know you said earlier that, to be completely transparent, you're not interested in any coaching program, but you just told me that blank. You just told me that blank. You just told me that blank. And I know that we can help you insert core desired result because we helped case study, and we've actually done this ourselves. So if you're open, I can walk you through what the coaching program is and how it's going to help you. But I obviously want it to be a serious conversation where you're actually considering it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not, we're just both wasting our time. So where do you want to go from here? I'd say something like that. Brian, what would you say if somebody says, well, I actually want to try the low ticket front end offer first, and then once I start getting results, make some sales, then I'll buy your 15K.
Yeah. So remember everybody when Cole talked about pre-handling objections, there's a point in the call when you've got done doing discovery and you're talking about current circumstance where we burn the bridges on everything else that they could have tried or have tried to fix the problem. Right. And that's really important. And a lot of people miss that. So if it's B2C, I'm going to ask, like, got it. So when you think about this goal of getting to 10 grand a month, like, what else have you tried to get there? Have you, it's got it. So you've tried drop shipping, that didn't work. You tried this, you did this, you tried all these different things, they didn't get there. For selling STA and it's more B2B, it's like, well, okay, got it. Help me understand. Like, what have you tried to do in terms of hiring sales reps in the past? Like, what have those efforts looked like before? Have you worked with anybody else on this? Like, help me understand what else you've tried to do to fix this problem. So we can eliminate, basically, we want them to say, oh, I've tried everything. Nothing's worked for me, right? And then when you get to the end of the call, they're either going to fall in line with like, well, I can't say I need to go try something else because I told them earlier that I already tried that and it didn't work. So you can eliminate that, a lot of that early on. If you do get to the end of the call and they're like, well, I actually have this thing that I'm going to go do first and then I'll come do this. Usually what I'll say is look, can I be really honest? If you had like the winning lottery ticket, don't you think that you would have cashed it in by now? If you had the ability to change your situation and make more money, don't we think that we would have done that already? Well, look, let's just be really honest and transparent for a minute. Like, if you had the winning lottery ticket, you would have cashed it in. And if you had all the tools that you needed to go change X, Y, and Z circumstance, you would have already changed it and we wouldn't be on the phone. Do you agree? Get them to tie down on that and then pitch to the close. But the most important thing is when you get done with current circumstance, burning the bridge on everything that they've already tried or are thinking about trying to fix the problem before you even pitch.
Got it. Theodore, you say, I agree that preemptively dealing with objections is best, but how would these strategies change if the client knows the price before you get on the call with them? Personally, dude, if the client knows the price and still gets on a call with you, like, that's a layup in my book. Maybe you're saying they know the price and they won't get on a call, which, in that case, I have to know a little bit more context of how the calls are being booked. Max says, I'm not like everybody else. I can be very decisive, but I just need time to process this first. I'm a slow buyer and I'm very analytical because I've been impulsive in the past with money and I regretted it and learned the lessons, not how I just do things anymore. Yeah, so like, we kind of covered that one too. Mm-hmm. So if you remember how I said like the whole, come in now, if you wake up tomorrow, blah, 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 or refund you. You could either do that, or what you could say, like, what you really want to do here is validate that, okay, you've been burned in the past and like being impulsive didn't work out for you. And like, I get it, right? So like, I would say like the last thing I would want to happen is for you to make a similar decision as you made when you got high pressured into that thing. And you woke up the next day and you knew in your gut it wasn't the right thing. You know, like the last thing I want you to do is feel icky after this conversation because you feel like you didn't make a calibrated decision. But at the same time, you know, the last 3 years, the last 3 years, the pattern of decisions you've been making and what's been going on is not anything you want to repeat for the next 3 years. And we talked about that. And then I would just go right into the whole thing about either there's two decisions, right? If you feel, if this is somebody who's real feminine and it's like flowy, I need to, you know, if it's that type of energy, I would probably no deposit, just take the call the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And now you became their ally because you've totally validated that they need to feel really good about this. If it's like somebody with more masculine energy that needs a little bit more of like a spanking, and it's like you need to make a little bit, you need to make a freaking commitment, then I'm gonna go for that 24-hour refund thing. If it's like a very feminine, I need to feel it, I need to, you know, the thing is though, a lot of times that same client, when they tell you they're gonna show up, they usually show up to the next call. Like they usually don't ghost you. So that's just what I would say there.
Yeah, we kind of got 3 questions in a row that are all the same, like faith-based, delicate woman, I don't want to feel buying pressure, all kind of the same thing. You alluded to it at the very end there, where it's like whenever somebody feels defensive, they're never going to want to come back to a situation with somebody that made them feel defensive. So if you put them on the defense too aggressively on your first call, they're not going to show up on the follow-up call because you made them feel uncomfortable. So when I can tell that somebody is very spiritual or a little bit more feminine, or it's like genuinely I think the right thing for them to think about it, it just becomes becoming their ally. So you can still pitch a deposit, but it would just be very soft. It would say, hey, totally no worries if like this isn't what you want to do, but I also just want to give you the option. And again, it's no worries either way. What we can do as a potential thing is we can put down a deposit, go through that whole thing. But again, I'm also totally cool just to set up a call tomorrow. I just wanted to give you both options. Then they might say, okay, yeah, that's fine, let's do that. Or they'll say, yeah, let's talk tomorrow. Yeah, no worries. Are you okay if I like give you some homework before now and then we can go over it tomorrow? Give them some case studies to watch, talk to them tomorrow.
Yeah, I just went through a few of them, guys, because there were several that were pretty much the same thing. Jessica says basically Jessica's having an issue with like they apply for financing, but they're not getting approved and she can't get them on for a deposit. So
most of the time they're probably just lying about cash on hand. If they're not getting approved for funding, they probably don't actually have money for a deposit, but they don't want to tell you that. That's why they're being weird about it.
well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I personally with the whole like if the company doesn't allow refunds, I would just really petition like if you give some guarantees on the sales call to close people who are on the fence, I'm telling you, it will make you more money. Yes, you will refund some people, but it'll make you more money. So I think that's more of a like you should band together and really put together a case of how this is going to make them more money and not, you know, also with the whole refund thing. What's important is we're not letting people in and it's like, yeah, if you have 6 calls with your coach and like you have your onboarding call, like usually when we say these things on the sales call, we're not going to bog down the client success manager at all until we know the person's committed. What about uncertainty objection where they say they're 10 out of 10 in the program? They just have doubts that they specific won't be able to succeed due to low self-esteem. We kind of covered that. Remember, it's 3-step, right? Put in the work. Are you going to put in the work? You're going to do this. You're going to do this.
Somebody asked how you handle putting a deposit down. A lot of the times the reason closers suck at deposits because they don't give a reason for the deposit. They're just like, oh, okay, well then let's put a deposit down. That's it. Right? And so Robert, what's his last name? Influence? I was going to say Calabrini, but that's a basketball player. I can't remember his name.
Cialdini.
Cialdini.
Yeah, the because.
If you give a reason, if you become because, you have about a 90% success rate. If you don't, it's about 20%. So, got to give them a reason for the deposit.
Yeah. I don't know question about if anybody come back if I wasn't on the call and then the call we can't pay. tuition.
So she was saying the people that can't afford it, they don't put a deposit down because they can't afford it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is just because they're broke and they don't want to say that they're broke. So what I would encourage you to do is say, hey, no worries if you can't put down a deposit now. Are you just open to just leveling with me for a minute on like what's going through your head and what's actually going on so that we can put a specific game plan in place?
Nice.
And then they're going to say, yeah, I'm broke. And then you can say, no worries. Let's put a plan in place.
Right. So, okay, Kevin says for B2C, helping people try to save their relationship, get their ex back. Some people stall, delay, don't want to move forward because they don't feel confident that their situation can really be fixed because of how their partner is currently behaving, circumstances, etc. I try to weigh the handle with the way Todd Brown told me to do with damaging mission. Look, the truth is, not all can be saved, and I honestly have no idea if your relationship is one of those. But if your relationship is worth finding out, wouldn't it be a shame if you gave up on your relationship? You didn't have to. Don't want to do the best chance of working out. I'm curious if there's another way you would handle it. Okay, so essentially it's people trying to save their relationship, from what I understand. And okay, they're just not confident it can be fixed. Right. I mean, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, and I don't know if this is something I would do super soft. Like at the end, I mean, if this is like, okay, your marriage is failing and you're on this call to save your marriage and you're not confident it can be fixed. It's like, look, dude, first of all, like there's two parts. First of all, you need to be working to build a belief on the call with stories and examples and also like logic of why it can be fixed. But at the end of the day, like what I would say is like, look, I understand that's what's really important to you, but regardless of that, what's even more important is you finding the truth. And while I can't guarantee that we're 100% going to be able to fix your relationship, what I can guarantee is we're going to find the truth if this relationship is going to be what's important for you and what's necessary for the next season of your life. Okay. So while I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, what I can tell you is that if you want to save this, you have to do something or nothing is going to change. And even beyond that, yeah, I know X, Y, and Z price point is a lot, but you know, it's a lot more than that. Divorce. So if I was you, yeah, putting down X amount of thousands of dollars to save a relationship you don't know can be saved. Yeah, it's a little bit scary, as it should be. But what's a hell of a lot more scarier than that is for you to fast forward 5 years from now and look back at this moment and realize that you could have done something and you didn't. And not only did you lose somebody that was really close to you, but at the same time, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in divorce and attorney fees and settlement and you know, whatever. Right?
Money.
So yeah, I would just say something along those lines. I hope, you know, I'm hopefully I answered your question. I'm not just totally sure, but you know, what's funny is like, at the very end, you say soft or transformational. Like to me, that is not soft. Like that space is like, we have a ton of clients in that space. And I know that all of them, it's like what really, really helps their sales is when they have good salespeople come in who are like, bam, like they're like in the person's face. So, because you got to like shock that person to do it. Yeah. Do you have a guarantee? Yes. I think, okay. Do you pre-frame the two objections related to partner or spouse and also financial during the set call? Yeah, I mean, what do we do in terms of, oh, okay, I know what Chuck's asking. So in terms of partner, spouse, financial objections, what pre-framing do the setters do, if any, on their call? I don't even know, to be honest.
Dude, we really don't do anything. We just sidestep it because like a number without context is meaningless, right? And so if you give any sort of reference range, you're just leaving it up dependent on their own context. So our setters just say, like, if they ask, it really depends. They'll talk through that with you on the call. That's part of what you guys are going to go over. For spouse, if it's business partner, if you're B2B, they should definitely get the business partner on. If it's B2C, we don't really enforce it either way or the other because it'll just create a lot of sales resistance and the person won't show up. If it's B2B, you should definitely get the business partner on the phone.
Somebody's saying I found that about you last night. Again, I would just isolate. Okay, great. So barring that I'm a bandit from Mexico who's going to take your credit card, put it in my bank account, and then go off to Cancun and go off completely off the grid, and you're going to be screwed. Barring that, are you 100% in? Like, did everything I say make sense to you? Do you feel like it's what you need to get to blank?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So you're just worried like we're a scammer, or like what's going on? Especially, I mean, this is one of those things though, where like, man, like if you have a really good call and it's face to face on Zoom, the chances of somebody saying that to me at the end of the call is like not gonna happen. But yeah, I'm gonna isolate it. And then what I would do is I'd say, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. Come in and go through this blank, blank, blank. And in the next 24 hours, if you're like, oh my God, this guy's a scammer and he didn't fulfill on anything that he said, I'll just refund him.
Yep. Rebecca asks, I'm working on a new offer, doesn't have a ton of case studies. They're being prepped now, but I do get a lot of, do you have any clients I can speak to? So when I was first selling my offer way back in the day, same for Cole, is we just leveraged, and what you can do is just leverage the true result of the business owner, of ourselves, and then just be very transparent about it and just be like, yeah, we are newer, but the benefit of that is you're going to get way more attention from the actual business owner himself than you will anywhere else. Whereas if you go join X program where the business owner has been doing this for 4 years and have thousands of clients, what do you think the likelihood of you getting any of the business owner's time is? Almost none. Whereas because this is a newer program with a coach that has X, Y, and Z result, you're going to get way more of his attention than you ever will anywhere else. So you just want to reframe it as an advantageous thing because they get more attention from the business owner themselves because it's a newer, more exclusive program.
Yeah. Also, generally with the no case studies thing, that is always like, it's so true. Like that's always because you fear that you manifest it.
Yeah.
80% of that issue is that. Ask anybody. Almost every sales trainer agrees with that. This is Chuck. Hey, Chuck. Strategies for getting people into financing. I mean, I think this is a pretty tactical question. So it's like, fund my contract, coach financing. I would look into those companies.
Yeah.
Our reason for the 1K deposit holds fast action bonus. Yeah, I mean, look, like, okay, well then you're not going to be able to do it, I suppose. If it's like they won't test drive the program for 1K. And granted, we're not like, yeah, come in and like pay 1K and then 30 days later pay something if you want to. It's like usually come in for 1K in 3 days, we're gonna get you up to a 2K.
Yep.
Right. I would just pitch this to your business owner and just and don't be like, hey, I think we should just let him in for 1K. Like build a case. Like when you explain it in a way that makes sense, they're gonna get more sales than they would have otherwise. I can tell you for sure.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable just giving a deposit tomorrow. What's the because for this one? That goes back to what Brian said about you got to give them the because up front.
Yeah.
Right. If a real estate agent says, I want to do it, but I want to start next month when I close 4 homes I have pending, how would you handle this?
It's the same role play Cole did earlier.
Yeah. So I would buy them time, but again, I don't really know what that means. I'm going to say, gotcha. So you're 100, like, aside from that, you're 100%. Okay, so if we were talking at X, Y, and Z date next month, and you felt the same exact way you feel right now, we'd 100% moving forward. Gotcha. Can I ask you a question about that? Just to clarify, are you saying that you want to do this after you have those 4 homes closed because you'll have more bandwidth? Or are you saying you want to do this after you have those 4 homes closed because you can't afford it right now and you need the money and the commissions from those homes to be able to do this? See, that's different. Right? If it's a bandwidth thing, you buy them time. If it's like, oh, well, I'm actually like really financially strapped right now, so I need the commissions. Gotcha. Okay. So money aside, now see that's a financial objection now. Money aside, okay, are you up? Money aside, you're 100% in. Gotcha. And then you do the finances to where you go through the whole thing, cash on hand credit. Okay, look, I don't think the best thing for you is to just wait a month and do nothing. I also don't think the best thing for you is to empty out your bank account to 0. So what I'd be willing to do for you is blank, right? Hopefully that made sense. I kind of rolled through that. What's the number 1 objection that stops the show? Is there one?
Not for Cole and I, there isn't.
There's nothing stops the show, man. I don't understand how people are dying to get the results of the program. Won't do anything ever to find the money. It's only 5K. We have an ROI guarantee. How do I move these people? They're so damn sensitive.
I got this one.
Okay.
Dude, I'm gonna guess by the way you typed it's dude. I apologize. I shouldn't specify, but I'm gonna guess that when you say they're so damn sensitive, you're pushing people way too hard and probably being a jerk at the end of the call, and then they just don't want to get back on the phone with you. So it probably has nothing to do with the program. It probably has to do with the fact that you think all your prospects are like soft, overly sensitive people, and you're being too rude and being a bully, and so they don't want to ever talk to you again. Whereas if you just said, yeah, these people are really fearful and they have a lot of fear, and you reframed your perspective on the prospects and you were more supportive to them, they'd probably want to come back and buy from you.
Yeah. Real fast, we're getting to the end of your questions here. Give me a hand raise because the chat hates me and it's broken. Give me a hand raise if this was helpful so far. Come on, I need some more. I need some more hand raises. We need to pump these numbers up here a little bit, pump them up. Patrick says, when selling SEO, how to set your services apart from the competition. So the big thing here is like, it's in your pitch is the main thing. Remember, your pitch is the simultaneous explanation of why everything they tried in the past has failed and why this is going to be different. So what you want to do is use solution-based questions. They're in my training, solution-based questions to understand what they tried in the past, what happened, why they think they didn't work, etc. Okay, then you take all that ammo and you use it in your pitch. So a typical pitch could be like, hey, so you know earlier you told me when you're using that SEO company that something happened and ultimately you got this result. Yeah, see, based on the question I asked you earlier, the problem with what they were doing was blank. And because of that, you experienced consequence. So instead, what we do, which makes a huge difference with our clients, is we do your proprietary method, which allows you to benefit and ultimately benefit of that benefit. Does it make sense? So let me just give you a random example. So you know how earlier you were telling me like you tried drop shipping and you felt like you were, juggling 9 things at once while trying to work full time and be a single mom? Well, we see that all the time. And the problem is that when people try to do that, they just, the main thing they want is what? 2, 5, 10K a month online. The problem is that they're having to start a whole new business. They're having to do tech, build funnels, run ads, find products, and basically run a whole entire business with distribution, starting from zero with no experience. They're trying to build 100 skills at once. And ultimately what happens is they get flustered, life gets in the way, and nothing happens. So instead, with remote closing, the reason it works so well and the reason it was the easiest way for me to get started is instead of all of that, I had to focus on one skill. And by focusing on one thing, right, as you can probably tell, it was tremendously much easier. And I was able to double down on the one thing that worked, which that was all I needed to be able to get to my first 10K month. Hopefully that makes sense. So like, again, like you kind of want to do this compare and contrast thing. I always like, everybody out there is making this mistake. Here's the problem with that. And ultimately the consequence they experience as a byproduct of that problem. So instead, what we do is this, which allows you to experience benefit and ultimately the benefit of that benefit. Okay, you see us versus them frame, cost anchoring. There's a lot of good benefit linking, a lot of good stuff in there. Hopefully that helped, Patrick.
I got the next couple queued.
Okay.
How do you handle a candidate flooding the center with questions about the program when they're not financially approved yet? So number one, we don't actually financially approve candidates. We just use context based off of their situation. Anytime you try and like financially approve people on a triage call, you will always get sales resistance, which is what your setters are experiencing is sales resistance. Just had a sales call. Congrats. Tried the line about in your gut, do you feel like you're going to do it? After she gave me the think about it objection, isolated, it wasn't uncertainty about the time of the program. She said, yeah, I want to do it. I just got to figure out my cash flow. So I set her for a follow-up and build value in the program. So when she says, I want to do it, it's just got to figure out my cash flow. Go back and rewatch what Cole did with me on that role play where he said, got it. It's just about cash flow. He broke down finances, put a plan in place, closed me down. So go watch that part back because you were so close. Nicely done. Congrats. You're like one step away from getting the close every time in that situation.
That's Coach Bonnier, man. Coach Bonnier. If you go for cash on hand and they aren't open with you up to 2 or 3 times, how would you handle that? Yeah, it's salvageable. So right, if I'm like, so what I always do is I ask, what's net cash flow in 30 days? I mean, I don't really care about that much, but I just ask them a question to get them going. And then I say, gotcha. What's your cash on hand right now? And they're like, 500. I'm like, look, I'm not asking what you could spend right this second. I'm asking what you actually have access to. So like, what's your actual cash on hand that you have access to right now? And they're like, I'm not comfortable sharing that. I'd be like, okay, well, earlier you just told me you were 100% in, finances aside. I'm trying to find a way to make it creatively work for you, but I need to know like what you can actually do so I can create a custom plan. And now you don't want to like, so what's really going on? But remember, that's very unlikely to happen because we double tied down, then we got permission. There's all of this reason why we're asking the questions we're asking, all in their own benefit. There's preeminence frames, so it's very unlikely that happens at that point. But unless you have issues with it, right? If you're like, well, what's your cash on hand? I mean, you know, it's if you're weird about it, they're gonna be weird about it. But I'm not weird about it. B2B, I want to move forward. I'm in a contract with XYZ that is in for another 2 months. Then we can switch to your service. Interesting. I'd have to know a little bit more. Do you have anything for that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of two things. If there's like actual legal like non-compete issues, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. If it's, to me, what that sounds like is like, yeah, it sounds good. Let us finish up with these other guys, and then we'll come back to you. Then it's tying down. Well, like, well, what do you not like? They're signing up with you because they're not getting what they want from these other guys. Why is that? Are you going to really wait 2 months and delay the process that much farther for no reason? So if it's just that they're delaying, you just need to isolate the fact that delaying has an opportunity cost. And if it's the right solution, then it's the right solution today, not in 2 months. If it's a contractual thing, nothing you can do. But if they're just delaying for the sake of delaying, you just need to tie down that's stupid.
Yeah, I also think it depends. Like if it's like a software thing where you can't change, I mean that could be a whole thing, right? If it's an agency service, like again, like I don't know, like maybe you could convince them, like, look, dude, it's more profitable for you to pay us, pay off yeah, you're gonna have to pay off the rest of that contract, but your ads are so bad right now, it's gonna be more profitable to just give it to us and just pay for it. So,
yeah. All right, last question. B2B, I really like your method, but your price is quite a lot higher than all those we interviewed. So we need to discuss with the partners and get back to you. Totally get that. Here's the deal. Your partners weren't on the call, so they're not going to have all the information. And it's going to be a lot for you to go and explain everything to them that we just talked about for the last 45 minutes. Let's do this. I don't want to take up a full hour of their time, but let's schedule a 30-minute with all three of us where I can recap everything that we went over and re-show them exactly what it's going to look like to work with us. And then all four of us can make a decision together on that call.
Okay. We got through the Q&A. So look, I gotta give you guys I gotta make a confession. I had a lot of training planned out and we were gonna go through it very structured. Then when I was gonna get to the uncertainty base, I was gonna do the chat box. It just took us like an hour to get through the chat box. I think even more than that. We've been on for like 2 hours. So in answering all of your objections, I actually covered a lot of what we were going to cover. We covered finance objection. We covered a ton of uncertainty-based objections. We covered pace the first objection. We covered, what was the other one I just saw? We did cover some spouse, some business partner, and we covered a variety of different closes. We covered the giving you a month close, the 24-hour refund close, the payment plan close, all of that stuff. The only thing I have written down that we actually didn't cover, at least we did a little bit, but not in full detail, is spouse partner. So as a grand finale, if I get all of you guys raising your hand, we will cover spouse objection. But I want to see some hand raises. I'm very needy. I feed off the energy. I'm very needy. So I need a little bit of like inspiration here. I need you guys to egg me on.
Yeah, dude.
Brian's gonna give you his. Brian's is good.
All right. We got 62, 60. That's decent.
All right. So let me do my little basic one, and then you can top it off. Like you got the cherry on the top because yours is really good too. So again, let's say, dude, I really want to do this. I just got to talk to my spouse. No problem. Talking with your spouse aside, how do you feel? Do you feel like this is what you need to get your real estate business at $20,000 a month? Dude, absolutely. Gotcha. So if you talk with your spouse, like let's suppose for a moment you chatted with your spouse and they said, Johnny, whatever you think is best for this family, you 100% move forward with. Okay. If you'd already had that conversation, you're back talking with me right now. What do you think would be the next step from there? We'd be moving forward. Gotcha. Perfect. So really, we just have to have that conversation. Now, just for clarity's sake, is this a conversation to where you're asking for a permission? Or are you just already decided you're going to do this and you just have to let her know? I'm using, I'm talking to a man, it's a female here. So that's the context. But is it permission or is it you've already decided it's going to let them know? Right? Very basic. But that's key. Because if it's a let them know, we can usually close. If it's a permission, we got a little bit more work to do. So let's just say it's permission. I'm going to say, gotcha. And then I'm going to go into discovery. Okay. What do you think she's going to think about this? What do you think she'll say when she hears the investment? Right. So that's a good one. You always want to throw that one in there. Is she supportive of you trying to fix insert problem? Is she supportive of you trying to, get your health back in line and lose weight? Are you guys on the same page? This is a problem. Is she involved in the business? Okay, what does she do? Does she know about us? Does she know you're on this call? What would you think if she knew you're on this call? Okay, when do you think you're going to be able to talk to her? So you kind of go into all these questions. And then after you kind of flush out the information, here's what I typically do. Okay, I'm like, hey, totally appreciate you being honest with me about that. Can I give you a little bit of coaching? Right. And this is, well, before this, I would say, so kind of walk me through your plan in terms of how you're going to present this as a spouse. Oh, I'm going to say okay, great. Appreciate you being honest with me about that. Can I give you a little bit of coaching? There's really two ways you can go about this. Number one, you can say, hey, I met this Cole Gordon guy on the internet. Never met him before, but he has this thing. It's 9,800, teaches you how to be a closer. And I really think we should do it. I think I could, make some money. It's online. I'm brand new. What do you think? You could do that, or you could say, look, babe, in the past, I've been working really hard. I haven't been, not only fulfilled in my work, but I haven't been bringing home the money for myself and for our family to do what the things that we want to do. And then on top of that, I haven't been in a place where I feel like I have freedom and I feel like I have control for us to do what we want, when we want, where we want. And not only have I found somebody to help us, but I found something that I want to commit to and that I want to pursue as an entirely new career. And I've decided I'm going to do this, but before I actually made it the decision official, I wanted to ask you for support. Now, which way do you think is better to approach your spouse? Way one or way two? Obviously way two, right? And so then I would cap it off by saying, you're right, way two. Because if you're not certain about this, she's not going to be certain, nor should she be. So the real question is, who are you going to decide to be in that moment? Are you going to decide to be person number one or person number two? I'm going to decide to be person number two. Are you sure? And is there anything I can do to support you in that conversation? Do you want me to talk to her? Okay, that's kind of the basic, right? Few things though is if it's possible, you can get the deposit, let them in, trial, get them in motion. That's always good. And then you just need to mitigate the risk. If she's super pissed and she wants you to refund, we can refund. So that's kind of the basic. But Brian, you go over yours. I like yours better than mine, but I didn't know about it until like 2 weeks ago.
I got a little treat, dude. I got the video locked and loaded, ready to go.
Oh,
Is that cool?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, everybody. For context, this was at our last. I can't share with sound. If I can't share with sound, it'll be too quiet. Never mind. No video. It's okay. So basically, I'll give you all the quick version. This works really, really well for B2C. Less for B2B, but really, really well for B2C. So basically, this is how it goes. Cool. Totally get it. Are you okay if I share some thoughts with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, man, all right. I got to get in flow with this. It's gotta be perfect.
My brain's on like nothing too. So I've been stuttering this whole entire time.
Okay, cool. So, Cole, how many times in the last couple of years have you told your wife that you were going to finally like take an opportunity and make money online, and then it didn't end up happening? A lot. How many times have you told your spouse on Sunday that on Monday you were going to start a diet, and on Friday you were completely off the diet? A lot. The reason I say this is there's been so many times in the past where you said that you were going to do something and then you didn't end up doing it, which is a sign of lack of commitment. And this is just going to come across as another one of those things to your spouse. So here's what I want to do, and here's how I want to help you win. We're going to put $1,000 soft refundable trial deposit down. Here's what this means. You're going to be able to go back to your spouse and say, hey, look, I really value you being involved in this decision. And I know that I've messed up with decisions like this a lot in the past. So here's what we're going to do. I put $1,000 down that's fully refundable. It's a soft commitment, emphasize soft commitment, so that you can come see what I purchased and be on my onboarding call, and I can show you everything. We can talk about it together. And then if you and I aren't on the same page about this and we decide not to do it, I already got permission for that $1,000 to be refunded, and we can move on from it, no questions asked. But this way we can make an informed decision together, and I can show you how committed I am to making this finally the thing that works for us.
Boom. Raise your guys' hand if you guys like that from Brian. And also, as you're raising your hand, I got a quick favor to ask. If you got value out of this at all, do me a favor and donate at least an additional $1 to the Malou Foundation to support victims of sex trafficking. I'm going to put the link in the chat again. It's going to be the thing to register for this event, right? But just do it. I'm going to match whatever we donate personally out of my pocket. Okay. So whatever we come up with, I'm matching. If it's 20 grand, I'm matching 20 grand. Right. You have my word. So do me a favor, donate $1, extra $50, whatever. It's a really, really good cause. And I hope you guys got some value out of this. We like to do this once every, couple of months for fun.
You guys can you can spam the Q&A box now and let us know if this was valuable.
You can spam the Q&A. Let us know your thoughts, your takeaway, thoughts, takeaways, whatever. Give us some feedback. Let us know how it was.
Thanks for watching this video, guys. For more content, you can check out one of these videos on the screen to continue leveling up your skill set in sales, business, life, and everything. See ya.